Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Xony, and today we're going to have some more stories from Reddit. But before we start, it would be so much appreciated if you would subscribe to my channel, like the video if you enjoy it, and maybe leave a comment down below. These simple clicks would mean a lot to the future of this channel and really reward the effort that I put in every day. And now without further, let's go. Now let's get into today's stories to find out what happened. I 39 met my ex-girlfriend 35 female. I was married for almost 10 years. My ex-wife and I started off great, but toward the end of our relationship, we just couldn't get along. We didn't have any children or anything tying us together, so we mutually agreed that it would be best to call it. One of the things that drew me to my ex-girlfriend when we met was how we had similar experiences with our partners. She was cheated on by her ex-husband and baby daddy, so she left him. We bonded over our shared experiences, and given both of our pasts, I figured we would put a lot of effort into having a great relationship. I met her daughter, and we were an unofficial family for the 3 years that we were together. I wanted to marry her and formally adopt her daughter, so she would have my last name. Because of the custody arrangements she had with her ex, he was very much in the picture. She would argue with him all the time about pickup and drop-off times. She would complain to me about how he was buying her a ton of fast food and spoiling her when they were together. We both thought it was some ploy to get her daughter to spend more time with him. I was used to her texting him all the time. They would have phone calls and video chats from time to time as well. As far as I was aware, everything they discussed was about childcare. She would never go to other places to make the phone calls. She would tell me about everything that happened with him anyway, so there wasn't much of a point to it. I thought we had a pretty open relationship in that respect. One day I noticed that she was stepping outside a lot to make the calls. My suspicions weren't raised immediately, but I did think it was weird. I would ask her about what he had to say when she came in, and she told me that he was giving her a hard time about dates and things like that. She was very vague with a lot of her answers. With their custody arrangements, they would alternate weekends that they would spend with their kid. So, every other weekend I would support her. Prize my girlfriend with a fun date night or something like that. I knew that she wasn't happy with the custody arrangement, so anything I could do to help her was good in my eyes. One weekend I made plans to take her to a museum, then we would grab lunch and catch a movie after. I told her that we had plans, but I didn't tell her exactly what we were doing. I had already bought the tickets for everything because I just assumed everything would be fine. She went to drop her daughter off at her ex's house, and I waited around for her to show up back home. Time kept going, and she didn't show up. She knew that we had plans, and it was unlike her not to be on time for something. My mind went to the worst-case scenario, and I immediately started calling her to make sure she was okay. She didn't answer the phone, and I was a little panicked. All I could do was wait to hear something back from her. About an hour after I had reached out, I got a response from her saying that she was going to be spending the day with her daughter and ex. I was really confused about that because I knew she couldn't stand her ex, plus it was his custody weekend, and unless he invited her somewhere, she had no right to be lingering around. I didn't want to push it and ask a lot of questions, so I just told her that I was worried and I casually asked what they were up to. She didn't respond to me until the end of the day. She told me that they went to a water park together since one just opened up near her ex. When she got home later that night, I asked her about her day to see how everything was. She told me that they all had a fun time, and she was glad that her daughter was able to spend time with both of her parents. She told me that it all felt normal again. Normal for her changed when he cheated on her and she divorced him. I was getting a sense that she missed what they had as a family. I could understand that, but I was a little bit nervous. I loved my girlfriend and I didn't want to lose her. She apologized for missing my plans and promised to make it up to me. When she said that, I thought she was being a little cheeky about making it up to me in the bedroom. When I made a move on her, she turned me down. Our intimate life wasn't the greatest on the planet before all of this, but after the weekend she spent with her ex, it was non-existent. For weeks, every time I would try to kiss her for more than a couple of seconds or do anything intimate with her, she would come up with an excuse to get away from me. At the same time, she was spending more time with her ex. It felt wrong to complain about it because she was framing it in a way that she was doing it for her daughter, but after a while I started to suspect that there was more to it. She came home late one night from dropping her daughter off at her ex's house and I noticed a mark on her shoulder. She was clearly trying to cover it up with her shirt. It could have been something from a curling iron or a bug bite, but I was already suspicious and the placement was adding to that. Later that night, I looked through her phone when she was asleep. I needed to know if there was something going on with her and her ex. Of course, my suspicions were immediately confirmed by their text messages. They were sending things like, "I can't wait to see you this weekend, I miss you so much, I want you back," etc. I looked through their messages and saw that he apologized for cheating on her and subtly blamed her for the cheating. Instead of fighting back like she normally would have, she accepted what he had to say and took some of the blame. I thought it was kind of pathetic for her to do that. The weekend that he told her he was going to the water park, he invited her to his house for a discussion. According to the text messages after that, they slept together that night. From there everything escalated and they started seeing each other again. I was heartbroken and angry that she would lie to me and cheat on me like that. The thing about it is, if she wanted to try to rekindle something with him to have her family back together for her daughter's sake, I would have understood. I wouldn't have been happy with it, but if she had come to me from the beginning, I would have accepted it. But instead, she lied to my face and made me look like a fool. I wanted to get back at her in some way. I had been good to her and she completely betrayed my trust. I needed to show her that I wasn't someone who would be toyed around with like that. I played it cool and didn't say anything to her over the weekend. In fact, I tried to avoid her. After her daughter was back from her dad's house, I decided I was going to pay him a visit. I didn't know what I had planned when I got there. All I knew was that I was angry and I needed to take it out on something. When I pulled up to his house, I noticed that there was an unfamiliar car in the driveway. It didn't belong to him and it wasn't my wife's. I didn't know who else he spent time with, but given his history, I couldn't help but wonder if it was another woman. I thought it would be really rich for my girlfriend to throw away everything we had to give this man a second chance only for him to continue cheating on her. I kind of hoped that would be the case actually. I looked inside the car before I walked to the door and I saw that there was a fuzzy pink steering wheel cover and made an assumption that it was a woman's car. I walked over to the windows and peeked inside to see him very cozy with another woman. They were in his living room watching a movie. She was sitting on his lap with her arms around his neck and they were kissing. I took a couple of pictures and drove away. I knew exactly what I was going to do to get back at my girlfriend then. I got home and waited for her daughter to fall asleep so she wouldn't have to hear anything I had to say. My girlfriend sat down next to me on the couch and I calmly told her that I expected her to be out of my house by the end of the week and I didn't want anything to do with her. She tried to play dumb like she didn't know what was going on, but I told her that I knew about everything. She made it out like I was the bad guy for going through her phone. At the end of our conversation, she told me that she never loved me anyway. She reminded me that her ex was a woman, the love of her life, and they were going to get back together because he changed. That's what I pulled out the photos I'd taken of him with the other woman. She was shocked to see them. I told her that it didn't look like he changed as much as she thought. She was clearly angry about the pictures, and she stormed out of the living room. I heard her yelling on the phone shortly after. She came to me a couple of days before she was supposed to be out and apologized, begging me to change my mind and let her stay. Apparently, she wasn't able to work things out with her ex. I told her that wasn't an option for me, and she only had a few more days to leave. She tried to tell me that she had nowhere else to go, and that she couldn't afford to be out on her own, but I just told her that wasn't my problem. She didn't have a job, she survived on spousal support from her ex, and if they couldn't work things out, I doubted she was welcome at his house. By the end of the week, all of her things were packed, and she was on her way out. She was going to her grandmother's house a couple of states away. I can only imagine that a major custody battle took place after she left the state. That's typically not something a parent with a custody agreement is allowed to do without notice. Frankly, I don't really care. She's out of my life and all I want to do is move on from this nightmare. Now let's get into the second story. My 33 male wife 30 female and I have been together for 6 years. When I met her I knew right away that I wanted to be with her forever. She was everything I ever thought I wanted in a woman and more. It actually took a little bit of convincing to get her to go out with me to begin with. She was new at the office we worked in and she didn't want to get in trouble by dating another employee, but I could tell that she liked me by how she looked at me. We eventually had our first date and it was incredible. It sparked the beginning of a whirlwind romance and we got married about 1.5 years after meeting. One of my favorite things about her was her desire to always be learning. Whether it was a new skill or a language, she was always trying to expand her horizons. She was a very worldly person, she loved to travel, and she loved learning things about different cultures. I wasn't any of that, but I aspired to be, so I admired her for it. We did some traveling together when we first got married. We visited Singapore and Thailand together, which was incredible. When the pandemic happened, obviously we weren't able to travel at all. Not being able to travel and explore the world really took a toll on my wife. It truly was her greatest passion, and having her confined within a house for months was a nightmare for her. One of the things that she did to escape from that was to join this online club that would meet once or twice a month. People would just chat over a Zoom call about places they visited and their cultures. One of her favorite aspects of it was a recipe sharing section where everybody shared different foods from their respective cultures. She loved her group. She actually became pretty good friends with a lot of the members. They would chat with each other away from the group meetings and play games online or watch movies together through Discord. I was happy that she was able to find a way to survive those early days of the pandemic. When everything was clear, vaccines were coming out, and it was finally safe to travel, she jumped the first opportunity she had. Unfortunately, I was back working in the office, so my schedule wasn't permitting anything like that. She was actually laid off at the beginning of the pandemic, and I was supporting us both, so if she wanted to travel, she would have been able to. We had a long conversation about it because she felt bad going without me, but she told me how trapped she felt after everything that happened. I wasn't happy with her going without me, I felt left out. But I knew that she needed that freedom, so I agreed to let her go. She left for a week, and came back happier than I'd seen her in a long time. She had gone to Germany to visit one of the friends she made in her online group. She showed me a ton of pictures of them together, the things she'd seen, and the food she had eaten. I thought it was enough to say she had her desire to travel until we could do it together. But I was wrong. It only seemed to open a window for her to want to do more. I still couldn't take off and ignore my responsibilities to go with her. I explained how her traveling alone made me feel, and she agreed that she would wait until I could take some time off before she went anywhere else. A couple of months after we had that conversation, she told me that one of her friends from the online group she was in had been begging her to come for her wedding. At first, I thought she was going to be a good friend, thought that I would have had enough time to request off of work and go with her. When she told me the dates, I was disappointed because I knew I wasn't able to go. I had a big work conference that was mandatory that I attended. I reminded her of that and she told me she had forgotten all about it. I didn't realize this at the time, but she was lying about that then. I didn't have any reason to suspect that something was going on, so she seemed genuine when she told me that she forgot and wouldn't go if I couldn't go with her. She knew that I would tell her to just go without me. The weeks leading up to her departure were a little strange. I could tell that there was something wrong with her, but I didn't know what at the time. She was acting very nervous around me. She couldn't meet me in the eyes a lot of the time, and it always seemed like there was something on the tip of her tongue that she wanted to say. We both left on the same day for our flights. I was so busy that I didn't even think to check in on her when her flight should have landed. When I got back to my hotel room at the end of the day, I checked my messages to see if she sent me anything, but she didn't. Before I started to worry, I logged into the airline's website to check her arrival time. Because I traveled for work a lot, and she liked to travel in general, We had a joint account so we could accrue miles. I saw that there was a new flight logged in our history. She landed where she told me she was originally going to, but there was a departure to Paris, France an hour after the other flight arrived. She never mentioned anything about going to Paris while she was there. I screenshotted the information and I texted it to her to make sure that it was her that bought it. It wasn't impossible that somebody could have hacked our account and bought their own plane ticket. She didn't respond to me right away, but I got a message about 15 minutes after the Paris flight was scheduled to arrive. That pretty much confirmed to me that she was in Paris. I just didn't understand what she would be doing there. She called me from the airport and told me that she had a little extra time and she wanted to visit the city before the wedding. I was honestly a little too tired to argue with her, so I accepted it and figured we would talk about that later on. It was a little bit frustrating for me because airline tickets aren't cheap, especially not when somebody is buying business class and first class tickets everywhere they go. As I said, she lost her job at the beginning of the pandemic. I had an incredible job and supporting both of us wasn't an issue at all, but when she was making purchases like that, it would be nice to be aware of them. I went to sleep and didn't even think about it until I woke up in the morning. When I looked at my phone, I saw that I had a text message from an unknown number. It wasn't immediately alarming because I have a lot of spam text messages that come through on a daily basis. When I opened it to see what it was, I saw a picture of my wife standing in front of a mirror naked with a man standing behind her taking a picture. No context given to the photo at all. Immediately I replied and I asked who the person was and they read the message. They just didn't reply. The conference I was attending was hugely important for my work, so I tried as best as I could to push what I saw to the back of my mind just to get through the day. I didn't look at my phone because I couldn't stomach the idea of my wife texting me that she loved me after what I saw. When I was finally finished with the day, I noticed that the number that texted me tried to call me twice. I got back to my hotel room and I called back. Surprisingly, a man answered the phone. I asked him who he was and why he sent me the picture that he did. He told me that he just wanted me to know that I was barking up the wrong tree by talking to my wife. I was very confused about what he was saying. I was married to the woman. If anybody was barking up the wrong tree, it was him. While we were on the phone, I noticed that he had a thick French accent. It was clear that she booked the ticket to France to be with that guy in the picture. Out of curiosity, I checked the airline website again to see if she had booked another ticket back to the city she was originally supposed to be in, but she didn't. The only ticket that was remaining was her return flight home. Without thinking much about what I was doing, I removed my payment information from the website and canceled her flight. I didn't know exactly what was going on there, but I knew she cheated on me. The details about what she told that guy weren't really any of my concern. She lied to me about why she needed to go abroad so she could sneak off with the other man. I doubted there was even a wedding she was supposed to attend. I finished up the conference and went home right away. If she was going to cheat on me, I was going to take everything from her. She could be stranded in Paris for the rest of her life and I wouldn't care. When the time came for her to come home, she called and texted me and asked me about why I canceled her flight. She had no idea her little boyfriend told me about what was happening. I ended up answering the phone and explaining to her that I knew everything and she wasn't going to be returning to the States on my dime. She would have to figure out her own way home. She tried to explain the picture by saying that I misunderstood because that was an old photo of an ex. I knew for a fact it wasn't. She was lying to me yet again. I told her that she had one chance to tell me the truth and that was it. She caved in and told me what was really happening. Of course, the man she met in Paris was one of the people from her online group. They had both gotten to talking and he seduced her. He was in a band and he was artsy, things that she would normally go for in a man before she met me. I didn't say anything about it and I told her that when she got home she could expect to find divorce papers waiting for her, then I hung up. I didn't buy her plane ticket back. She actually ended up getting back to Paris. Having to call several people to try and get them to buy her a ticket because she didn't have any of her own money. I had completely cut her off after I found out she cheated. Her sister ended up buying her the ticket, then called me out over the phone about stranding her. I did some digging online to try to find out who the guy was that my wife was sleeping with. She mentioned that he had a band, but when I found him I was surprised by how many followers he had. He was a growing artist and had recently released a song that was doing pretty well. I knew it was wrong when I did it, but I couldn't help myself. I blurred out my wife's face so she couldn't sue me for revenge, then I posted the picture of the man online with a throwaway account, tagging him in it. It got a lot of views, and the story that I posted along with it about how he slept with a married woman and ruined someone's life got a lot of sympathy from people. I divorced my wife and she ended up moving out with her sister while she looked for a job that could sustain her. She ended up working in person again, which I knew would disrupt her traveling desires. I thought that was funny. A couple of months after I posted the picture online, I checked on the status of the band out of curiosity. They had gotten quite a mixed reception over the image. One of the band members spoke out on their Instagram page about how after everything happens it was decided that it would be best for the band to part ways and pursue different paths. So it felt kind of good knowing that their band might have broken up because of me.